Hello everyone, welcome to the course of programming in Python. So far we have learned about the variables, the data types, the data structures and the operators. In this particular session we are going to learn decision making in Python. So let's get started. Before we learn what a decision making in Python is, uh, let's try to understand uh, it as a concept. So you see, if you're programming something, if you're going to write code for something, end of the day, it is nothing but it's an instruction to the machine, right? It's a instruction or a command or a set of instruction to our laptop, right? Through which we are going to get some job done. And remember, the way we human think and perform and do the job, somewhere we are making our machines do the job the same way. And you know that decision making is one of the integral part of process even in our mind. We take inputs from so many uh, sensory organs, either through the visual, through the eyes, or the audio, through the ears, or the taste, or the feel, or the memory. So many the data keeps on coming from the so many sources, and we think about that, we process that, and we take a decision whether I have to go to school, whether I have to go to office, or whether do I have to go out and shop, or do I have to go out for play or not play. So many decisions we take. In the same way, even Python can take a decision. But can it take a decision? So let's learn here. There are three keywords in Python. One is if, one is elif, and one is else. These three keywords, they are profoundly used in Python to take the decisions. And remember, decision is one of the important and the most important topic in Python, because every now and then you're going to take the decision, and because of decisions you take, that's what make your that's what put the whole intelligence and logic behind your the whole logic in your code. So let's see how we use it. So let's first learn about if. All right. So the basic structure of if is, you write if, and then you're going to write about condition, and then body. Okay. So if you're wondering what condition is, what body is, then let's see here how you're gonna utilize this in effectively. For example, if I say score, okay, let me create a variable called as score equal to 80. All right. And let me create another variable called as passing marks is equal to 40. Now I have a score, and I have a passing marks. Both are the data which I'm holding it in a variable. Now how do I use it? Let me use if. So it's just like English. We see, right? If it's raining, take the umbrella. If it is not raining, do not take. Same way, when I write a condition, if you remember from the previous class, the operators, we have comparison operators, the membership operators, so many operators you have. You're going to use those operators to establish a condition, and whether that condition is true or false, based on that you're either going to run this particular piece of code which is written here in body, or you're not going to run that piece of code. Okay, so if I'm writing score greater than passing marks, or I would say greater than or equal to passing marks, then remember, after if you write condition and followed by colon. So here I'm gonna put a colon here, and this collectively forms my condition. And when it comes to body, I'm gonna write print congratulations, you have passed. Right? I can write any number of if you want. So these, every time I write, it's like an independent decision I am taking. If this condition is true, I am evaluating a condition. If it is true, then I'm right. If, so let me reverse here. I'm gonna check for lesser. If it's less than passing marks, I'm gonna write No worries. Better luck next time. All right. So since it's 80 here, the score is 80 and passing marks is just 40. Obviously, the student is passing. So if I run this, it says congratulations, you have passed. But if I drop it to say 20, let's see what happens. It says no worries, better luck next time. So you see, although I have written even this particular piece of code, I have written even this piece of code, but both of them did not execute. Both of them did not run. Why? It's because my condition did not pass. So only if your condition passes, only then you enter into the body and you run it. Okay, right. So let's take few more example. If I write if, okay, let me create some variable. If x equals to 5, y equal to 10, I write if x is greater than 2 and I print x is greater than 2. Okay, remember, okay, I shall be telling you that later. What I'm doing here is I'm checking all the conditions. If x is greater than 2, I'm printing x is greater than 2. If x is equal to 2, I'm printing x is equal to 2. If it's less than, I'm printing less than 2, right? So, okay, y is not needed here. So since it's 5, let's try to run this. It says x is greater than 2. Now let me make it 1. Let's see what happens. Oh, it prints x is less than 2. If I make it 0, it prints x is, oh wait, oh, okay, that's correct. Sorry, I should be writing as 2. Okay, it says x is equal to 2, right? So for different scenarios, my Python is able to take the correct decision and it's able to print the required value, right? So this is what is known as decision making in Python. Few things to remember here is, if you observe here, whenever I write a code in a body, I always indent it or align it. You can see a space here. So this space indicates that after this space means whatever code is coming here that belongs to the presiding if. Okay, so this piece of code belongs to this presiding if. What it means is, only if that condition is true, only in that case this particular piece of code is going to be run, and this piece of code belongs to this immediately previous if condition. Okay, right. Another thing is, remember, it is not just uh, you can take one decision. You can take a decision after a decision and after a decision. So it's like a nested decisions. You're taking a decision in hierarchy. For example, if I write score equals to 80 and I write passing marks equal to 40, let me first check whether the student passed or failed. So I'm going to check if score greater than passing marks. If he is passing, I'm going to print you passed. Okay, but since he has passed, what I want to check what grade he has scored. So since I am already confirmed that he has passed because this condition is already met, now in this body itself I am going to write another decision making. I am taking another decision. So if score is greater than 90, I would say print you are you are an achiever. Okay. Okay. So if you see here, if I'm going to run this, it only says you passed. Why? Because the score was 80. This condition did not. So since it was 80, this condition passed, you entered into this body. The very first thing you did is you printed you passed. That's fine. And then you took another decision. Is it greater than 90? Since it was not greater than 90, you ignored. You did not enter inside the next body. So remember, every time you create a new block of code, since here I am taking a new decision, I have to further indent it. Okay. So if I take this and try to explain you here, you can see that I have given the indentation here. I have given the indentation here, and this is a body of code. This is the body of this particular condition. This, after executing this particular instruction, you're going to come down and go for this decision making. In this decision making, you're checking for this condition. If this condition is true, you're going to execute this another block of code. Got it? So this is how it is happening. You have learned if. Remember, this if can be used, this particular keyword can be used any number of times. You can take as many decisions as you want, and you can take any number of decisions within another decisions. You can take, these are called as nested decisions. So decision making helps you to selectively execute a piece of code and ignore the rest. Okay. Now since you have learned if, now let's move on to else. Okay, what this else keyword does. So I'll be telling you elif little later, but let's first focus what else does. Basically, like I said, you can use as many if you want. For example, I can say here if 5 less than 10, then I'm going to print 5 is less than 10, right? I can do this. And same way I can do for any number of times. I can write for 3 also. But if you see here, if is independent, it doesn't matter that whether there any other keyword present or not present. You can use the if any number of times to take independent decisions. But when it comes to else, remember, else cannot be written like this. You have to have an if first. For example, if I'm having, let me take the same example. If I have these two data, if I'm writing if score is greater than passing marks, and I'm printing you passed. What if, so in the present scenario, if the condition is not true, what happens is Python simply moves on. Python doesn't do any alternate task. Since the condition did not meet, it did not enter. That's all. You just don't do any other action. But what if you had any alternate counter action in your mind? If the condition is not true, if the condition is true, then do this. But what if it is not true? In that case, in case you have any counter action in your mind, then you can write else, and you can write print you failed. So what happens is, now this is collectively forming one decision making. Remember, if can exist alone as many number of times as you want, but else, to use else, you definitely and need a presiding if condition. So this, your Python, when it's coming from top to bottom, it first checks the condition of if block. If the condition is true, it's going to execute the body of if. Otherwise, if it is failing, then it immediately jumps to else, and else doesn't need any condition. Obviously, because it is getting executed because the previous one did not pass, and you come down to else block and you run this. So if I run this, you see it says you passed. If I make it 35, the Python comes to the counter action, you failed, right? So that's how you use else. And of course, within if block or whether it is else block, you can always write more decision making. All right. Now let's see how you use elif. Okay, suppose you have condition A, okay, and you have the body here, but what if condition A did not meet? If condition A did not meet, that's okay. What if you want to go for another condition? In that case, you're gonna write another. You okay? Not if. Let me use elif. So you can use elif. So suppose if your condition A is failing, instead of directly jumping to else, what if you have another condition in your mind which you want to check before you jump to counteraction? You can write, you use elif. So if A, if it's true, you're gonna run this body. If it's not true, then you're gonna check for another condition B. If it is true, you're gonna immediately run this body and you move out. And if just like B, you can write any number of elif. And one by one, if it keeps on failing one by one, it will keep on move. Python will keep on attempting to check the next condition. If all of them fails, Python simply jumps to your else part and runs. Okay, so let's see how it works. For example, I have say number can be anything. Okay, I'm gonna int input, please enter a number. So what's happening here is I'm asking user, so this particular function input, using this I'm asking user, please tell me a number. So he will type through his keyboards, and whatever number I'm getting, I mean that will be in string form. So anything that's coming from you through the input function, it's always in string. This is I am further pushing into the integer so that it becomes integer. So if you see here, this is the kind of prompt I'm gonna get. If I write 50 here, that's all. Now let me use the decision making here. If number is greater than 0, then I'm gonna print the number is positive. All right. Now if I write else and I write the number is negative, well, this is a little unfair because number can also be 0. And if I'm considering only what is greater than 0 is positive and anything else is negative, that's not true. So rather than directly jumping to else, I can always have another check here. You can see elif number equal to 0, and I would write print the number is 0. Okay, you see here how I took the decision, correct? So one after the other. So obviously this whole forms a comprehensive decision making, and based on whether this is getting true or this is getting true, Python will execute only one block. Okay, so if you try to imagine how it's like, so you write a lot many piece of code in Python, right? You write a lot many lines of code. Python is coming from top to bottom. Out here, if it's coming from top to bottom, suppose here is your decision making. Okay, if the condition is true, Python takes this path and then continue its journey. Suppose the condition had failed, then Python will take this path or and then continue its journey. Make sense? So basically, decision making can also be termed as something that can alter the flow of control. So this is called as control, and you can see that the flow has been altered. It either moves into the if block or the else block and selectively runs the code. And this is the whole purpose of decision making, because when you write larger applications, for example, you can see in your Netflix app, you press a button. Now, whether you pressed a pause button or a play button, your software has to take a decision, right? Whether it has to move forward, backward, pause, or play, depending on the click of a button. So, at the background is taking a decision. Is it equal to play? Is it equal to pause? Using those operators, it is taking decision, and accordingly, it does some relevant actions. Okay. right? So that's about decision making. In the next video or in the next session, we are going to practice a little more about decision making, so that you get a better hands on. So this was all theory, that you have three keywords: if, elif, and else. Using these three keywords, you always you make a decision in Python. And if is something that can, be independently lying, but to use elif or else, it needs to be used together with if. Okay, so this is how the syntax looks like for the if. And if you're using else also, then the syntax shall be looking something like this. Okay, and if you're using elif also, in that case you have to insert as many elif as you want. Okay, something like this. I can use as many as if elif I want. All right, and based on which condition is getting satisfied, that corresponding body shall be run for you, and Python will move on. Okay, yeah. Thank you.